thank you for joining us. My name is Alexis Haley, and I, along with the rest of Team 2, am going to take you on a journey across the world. We are going to communicate our 5 recommendations to communicate your intent across all cultures. Please be advised that this can be in a one-on-one scenario or in a group scenario. Although we are all in America, we found out that each of us is originally from somewhere else. And so we're going to take you to our different home countries. We thought the best way to teach everyone would be to take you to our different home countries. So your tour guides today are going to be Alexis Haley, Nancy Morris,
Tina Hassani Manshadi,
Muhammad Ghulam,
Enrique Martinez,
Keely Grandin.
All right, now before we begin our travel, it's important to discuss our agenda. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Mohammed. He's going to teach you about Pakistan. And from there, you're going to learn about how to determine the objectives. From there, we're going to jump to Tina, who's going to take us to Iran. And she's going to provide you with the clear information on how to present it. Then we're going to go to Enrique, who's going to be in Cuba, who's going to teach you how to persuade your audience. And from there, we're going to jump to Wales, where Nancy will be, and she's going to help you facilitate interactive communication. And she's also going to do the crucial communications activity. Then finally, we're going to jump to Keely, who's going to help you in Germany, who's going to teach you how to measure your outcomes. And then we're going to jump back to me, where I'm going to conclude, and I'm going to give the question and answering. All right, now you may ask yourself, why is this important to me? Why should I care about it? Well, look to the person to your left. Say hi. All right, now look to the person to your right. Say hi again. Now, as Drew and the other presentation concluded, everyone is kind of different. And even in our group, we found a lot of diversity. And so I'm assuming since this is an undergrad course, that everyone has either started their careers or they're going to start their careers. It's important that when you start your career, you're able to communicate your intent in a confident and effective manner and not be offensive. And so, not everyone is going to be from the same background as you. Not everyone is going to be from the same culture. So how are you going to identify with them? What are you going to say to them? So we are going to give you 5 tips to help you with that and communicate in a clear, professional way. As a result of this presentation, you will be able to present and communicate with any audience, with any person, and with any culture, and any coworker in a clear, effective manner. So now I'm going to pass it over to Muhammad, who's going to teach you about determining your objectives from Pakistan.
Thank you, Alexis.
Here you go.
So as we leave the US and head to Pakistan, I'll tell you guys how to develop your objective. I'll tell you guys how to develop your objective. I'll tell you how to determine your objective. In line with our theme, the objective helps the presenter to move from point A to point B. I will also tell you guys what objective can be and why it is important, how can you develop your objective, and what challenges you might face in developing your objective. So the objective of your presentation is one or more statements that help you pull together clear information to convey the message to your audience. It also helps you provide clear information, influence your audience to confirm your way of thinking and buy something from you. It is important because it promotes efficient use of your time. It also specifies what is you hope to achieve from your presentation. After you know what you hope to achieve from your presentation, you can easily tell what information is important, and if that information is important, then it will help you get to your desired outcome. As we approach from Pakistan, I'll tell you how to develop your objective. Your objective needs to be specific. You have to use benchmarking to make sure your objective is attainable, which Kelly will tell you guys in detail later on. You have to make sure your objective is measurable and attainable, because without objective not being measurable, you won't be able to find out if your presentation is successful or not. What challenges you might face? So the first challenge is basically the too much information you gather. So you want to find out what relevant information is and what irrelevant information is. So the relevant information is basically which helps you to get to your outcome, your result. And if it's not taking you to your outcome and results, you want to make sure you remove that information. You have to identify a change in circumstances. So making sure Sometimes you might have to reevaluate your objective, you might have to rephrase your objective. Now, we finally arrived in Pakistan, and I would like you guys to watch a video clip related to workplace conflict.
Then he approaches the center of the stage and takes a bow.
No, I've got it. He engages our viewers. It'll be a much better conclusion.
But we've already agreed on the storyline. You can't make such a radical change to slate schedule.
What's the big deal, Anita? It's a much better ending. Look, you put the actors in costume, you know, especially the scene with the swords, and then you break down the fourth wall. You make the narrator speak directly to the camera at the end. It'll be a better ending.
Wait,
Don't you think?
Wait. I can't keep working like this. It's a waste of time. Since you're apparently the only one with good ideas, why don't you just go ahead and just finish it yourself? I'm sorry.
Listen, Brad, it's just a 30-second spot for a local theater company. Shouldn't be that hard.
Sometimes you get a wake-up call when you least expect it. You're going about your business, living your life, and suddenly you realize that you need to make a change.
Alright guys, so basically when conflict happen at workplace, you want to make sure you control your emotions, because emotions, when you're conflicting with somebody, they are very emotional at that time, and you want to make sure you keep your emotions out of the way, because they will try to argue with you, and you want to make sure you don't argue back with them. You want to make sure you don't tell them you're always right. You want to take the feedback from them. You want to make sure you don't reject them, do not react them. And now I'll pass it to Tina, and she will explain you guys how to provide clear information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's not clicking.
Probably the video.
There we go. Now I am going to tell you a little bit about how to present in a tell situation using the what, the why, and the how, as well as some challenges that you might face. When you're wanting to provide clear instructions on how to do something, you should try to tell a story to help your audience understand it better. Provide clear information and instructions, and be organized with your thoughts and ideas. When it comes to the why, you should try to teach your audience to do something. Some examples would be sharing information or reports at work, or orienting new employees at a workplace. The how might include things like prioritizing your materials before the presentation and emphasizing key elements and enunciating your words to be concise. Providing examples and quotes will also help your audience comprehend the materials better. Some of the challenges that you might face will include recognizing your audience's body language. You should also anticipate any questions that they might have after the presentation, and keep your presentation at a reasonable length so you don't bore your audience. These can all be achieved by practicing your presentation beforehand and feeling comfortable with the content that you are presenting. Now we are going to go to Iran and talk about some of the work environments in their culture. Every country has different things they find important to them. In Iran, you should offer praises and maintain boundaries to recognize the hierarchy. You should also try to celebrate and highlight the wins. Try to avoid offering insult. This might come off rude. And do not publicly shame anyone. This can harm your reputation and relationship with your coworkers. In Iran, loyalty to employer and coworker is very important. Do not exhibit bad behavior. This can ruin your credibility and things for you in the future. Now I am going to pass it to Enrique, who can explain to you how to persuade your audience.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, and before I start talking, guys, let me ask you a question, because you're gonna be also getting interested in the topic that I'm gonna explain. Could you please raise your hand if you were not born in the United States of America? So little. I was expecting more. Okay. So in today's topic, we're gonna persuade the audience, and we also say why it's important. There are also challenges that we might face, and how we're gonna do it. We're gonna explain you that as well. Persuading your audience can be difficult, but don't you agree with me? It's not impossible, is it? Okay. In this segment of the presentation, we're going to learn how to behave and adapt ourselves to different audiences. Our goal is that you succeed in life as an individual. As some of you might know, a key element will be earning your audience trust. Why is it important to earn your audience trust? Why is considered to be one of the most difficult tasks for you to accomplish? I'm trying to do it right now. I know it's not easy, right? Okay, I keep trying myself. Well, the why will be, let me tell you something on persuading people with different backgrounds, such as myself. I was born in Cuba. There are different cultures, different ethnicities, can be also extremely hard. For example, someone from the United States versus someone from Cuba, myself, might approach things in different ways. I'll tell you a personal example that happened to me at work. I don't know why I'm so nervous, guys. Okay. I had to talk with a coworker because things were not working in the proper way. There was a time that we sat down and I discovered that the way that I was approaching her and the way I was talking, maybe my tone, it wasn't the best. Meaning that American has this type of personality that you guys are very reserved versus us, me from Cuba, I'm more outgoing, more talkative, and it might be intimidating sometimes. After understanding what happened, what I did is I checked myself, I reformed, and I was able to actually get my message more effective and more clearly as well. Not everything was as easy as it sounds. There were challenges, guys, and I'm gonna tell you about that. Think about if I wouldn't reform or adapt myself, was I able to work in the environment? Should I quit? I was needing to support my family. So let me tell you 3 things right now that would have gone if I wouldn't change my attitude, if I wouldn't reform myself. First, I would say Americans are too reserved. But would I change myself? Second, they couldn't just listen to me because of the way that I was approaching them. Third, they could just ignore and didn't care about what I was saying or the way that I was acting. It is true, in today's world companies, diversifying is really important. They always try to maximize and minimize the risk for potentials in the future. Just think about it, how diverse we are in this classroom. Just in this group, we had a person from Iran, we have someone from Pakistan, Germany, myself from Cuba, and the US. I truly encourage you guys, to apply these techniques in your daily life. And first, I want to recap. We want to persuade the audience. Second, earn their trust. Third, respect and listen carefully before making any comments. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the word to Nancy, which is going to talk to you about facilitating interactive communication.
Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you.
So as we leave Cuba and head to Wales, I'll tell you about how to present in a facilitator situation. So I'll explain what it might be used for, why it might be used, how it might shape up, and potential challenges. So this type of presentation requires that you interact with your audience. As a facilitator, you might conduct a focus group to learn about varied products to determine their success on the market. One might be a paid participant to try out a new product. And so as the organization, you want to know what the feedback is so you'll know how successful your product is going to be. In the role of a consultant, you're trying to elicit expert feedback. You'll pull an appropriate audience together of subject matter experts so that you can get appropriate feedback. If you're an entrepreneur or you're thinking about becoming one, then you'll pull together a group of entrepreneurs. When leading a work group, your role is to guide the work efforts so that you achieve a common goal, as I've led our work groups. As we continue to our final destination, let me continue by saying that when carrying out the role of a facilitator, you will often ask the audience questions and you're going to engage in conversation with them. So when you pull that audience together, like you heard from group number 1, you want to make sure that you analyze audience and pull the proper audience together so that you get the right feedback. As a facilitator, you might ask a focus group, like I mentioned earlier, how did you like the product? Because you want to determine the success of your product. And you want to know if you're going to be successful as an entrant into the marketplace with your new product. When in a consultative scenario, as I mentioned, again, the entrepreneurs, you want to determine how successful your product is going to be. When leading our work group, I've done the best that I was able to do to present an effective presentation so that you all are well informed about how to communicate your intentions in your presentations. Some of the challenges that you might face, according to our textbook, with this type of presentation, you might lose control of the content. Because whenever you are asking questions, you're going to get varied responses, and that can lead you in other directions. So you have to be a strong facilitator and leader so that you can stay focused and pull your group back together. So an example of a focus group, which you might be familiar with, is a political focus group. So those focus groups can they can get violent sometimes, they can get out of control, people talk over one another. So those facilitators of those focus groups have to be able to pull the group back together so that they can maintain structure and get what they want from that group. So we finally arrived in Wales. And before I begin discussing the do's and the don'ts, let me just add that the UK is equivalent, for the most part, Wales as part of the UK is equivalent to the United States on the Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture. And so when speaking to someone from this lineage, you can apply, it's not going to differ much than what concepts you would apply to someone of the American culture. So I want you to consider an audience of one rather than a group, and you would address the individual using the same recommendations that you would, and the same methods that you would apply to your group. And I want you to think about a conflict that you might have had at work. So when you have conflict at work, you want to address this person so that you can move beyond and be successful, and it doesn't hinder the results of your company. So this will be an interactive conversation. You're going to consult with the individual because you want their feedback, and you're going to lead this conversation. So it's recommended by the authors of Crucial Conversations that you start with the heart. You need to be sincere and ask yourself what you really want and what do you really want for the other person, and be able to identify the stakes. Learn to listen by always asking yourself if the conversation is becoming defensive, and if so, be able to redirect that conversation. You need to make that conversation a safe place and don't address that coworker offensively. You need to master your story so that you can have a healthy dialogue. Don't be scared or frustrated or let those things, let those emotions get in the way, so that you can apply a thoughtful and appropriate response to the individual. State your path by being persuasive and don't be abrasive. You need to state facts and do not interject opinions. This helps the other person understand your perspective. Listen and explore and consider the other person's path, and ask the other person to share their thoughts. Make sure you understand one another, and then before proceeding, make sure that your actions are going to result in the intended result. So I'll just share that I conducted a difficult conversation before, and I applied these techniques that I just mentioned. You should have those on your handouts as well. And it was a successful conversation. So I'll just tell you the story. I was the director of nursing for a facility, and it was suspected that I had a staff that was a substance abuser. And so I had to address that staff. I pointed out the facts, I approached her and addressed her unoffensively. I pointed out the facts. The facts were that somebody could die. She could lose her license. The hospital's credibility was at stake. And she could face some legal issues, especially if someone died. So she admitted that she was having some problems. She welcomed assistance from the Board of Nursing so that she could go through a rehabilitation program to achieve sobriety. There was not loss of life, and today she continues to work under supervision in a healthy lifestyle, and so I call that a success. The hospital maintained credibility as well. Nobody died. That was my goal. So as a result of what I've just discussed, you should be able to apply what you've just learned in your own life. And so we have an activity you'll find in the blue sheet on your desk that we passed out earlier, the very expensive blue sheet that you have there. We're going to give you 4 minutes to complete each question, and when we're finished, I'll ask for a volunteer to share their information. So please, start now. One more minute.
No, I
Time out.
Okay, you guys, that's been 4 minutes. So is there an audience member that's willing to share their story?
Someone that volunteered. It's Halloween home,
Drew.
guys.
Okay, thank you, Drew. What is the conversation that you're not having?
Well, I had an employee. He was routinely coming in late. He was unkempt, didn't keep very well hygiene, and wasn't completing his instructed tasks throughout the day, and he was lying about completing them. So that was the conversation that we weren't having yet. Why? I guess why is he not completing them and saying he is completing them?
So were you able to identify and articulate the facts? I think you just did some of that.
Well, yeah, the facts, tasks aren't being completed. You can visually see that. She had too much phone activity going on, so that's probably why he wasn't completing those. And he was avoiding supervisors. So.
Okay. So what actions can you take that are in alignment with the desired result?
Well, I could limit his phone time or institute a policy for employees to not have their phones on them throughout the workday. That's a hard thing to do, though. I can have him follow up with the supervisor after completing tasks until we get to a point where we can start trusting him again. And that was mainly some actions that we can take.
Okay. So do you feel confident that you can move forward to address this with him?
I think so. I think it makes me think from his perspective and ask, what's his, why is he doing this? Is there troubles that he's having personally? Is there troubles with his situation in the company or with other employees? I think so.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm going to be passing this on over to Keely now, and Keely's going to talk to you about how to measure outcomes.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, well, congratulations, class. We have almost made it to our very last destination on the trip, Germany. On the way there, I'll be discussing how to measure performance by exploring the relationship and the difficult conversations between managers and employees, and how to measure the effectiveness. Okay, so the what? There are several methods that managers use to measure performance after intervening with the normal flow of work, with things like discipline, changes in the work environment, or conflict resolution. So there's the most common one is management by objectives, where employees are measured on the completion of a job-specific set of objectives. They can also be measured against SMART goals. I'm sure y'all are all familiar. The goals will need to be specific. We'll need to know what resources are needed and what's expected of them. Has to be measurable. This could be a deadline, a percentage increase in sales, or a decreased number of customer complaints. Has to be achievable. You make sure that the goal is achievable and that the employee believes that it's achievable. It'll make it easier for them to attain it. Has to be realistic. You make sure the goal is realistic for that employee's skill level, and you make sure that it's something that can be attained within the time and resources that they have. And it also has to be time related. Every goal has a realistic deadline. So last, there is inter-rater reliability, which is a standardized way of testing employees' confidence at their job duties. For example, insurance adjusters, when finding out the details of an accident, the company has a specific outline for how they handle the case. Inter-rater reliability is conducted through things like secret shoppers to make sure that any employee is following standard protocol at any given time. It ensures that the whole staff is consistently meeting company standards. But please note, this method is helpful when measuring employee performance, but action-based targets are more successful when you're presenting to an audience. So why are these important? There's several different types of tough conversations that you as a manager will have with your employees. So these are training or learning conversations, which will involve acquisition of new knowledge and skills, and you'll be focusing on how to measure the results after a training seminar. Consultation, which will involve conflict resolution and goal settings, and your focus will be on measuring progress and strategic planning. There's structural conversations, which are changes in the physical setting, and your focus will be measuring changes in efficiency after changing offices or implementing a new computer system. And then process. This will be your most common, and coaching and behavior correction usually fall into this category. So the how. Clarifying key information can be done by having an employee submit a self-written evaluation of their own performance. Then in the meeting, you can have them present it, and then you can go over points of agreement and disagreement. And then aligning with SMART goals. After the employee's current performance has been evaluated, give a few key target goals, such as a 5% increase in sales or a 1-day decrease in average processing time. And then work with the employee to find a set of target goals that are right for them. Involve them in the goal-setting process to help motivate them to work towards them. Some challenges that you might find: it can be tough to determine measurable targets for the employee to work towards. In some instances, with the inter-rater reliability test, it can be easy to see what areas need improvement and easy to measure those later. But in other instances, it can be tougher. The most common measurable goals are those with a deadline, and those requiring a percentage increase or decrease in one area of their job, like customer satisfaction or sales. So now that we are in Germany, we'll go over how to speak to people in Germany to really get your point across. So you'll want to gain their trust, you'll want to be punctual, and you'll want to be consistent with the way that you speak. They put a high value on efficiency. You want to offer clarifications, cut the small talk, get right to business, and be straightforward with your key points. And then frequently communicate the objective. They also place a high value on certainty, so relating key ideas to the objective will add substance to what you're saying. Don't avoid clarifications. Be systematic in the way that you present, and don't forget to relate back to the objective. Avoid lengthy conversations. Germans value their time and only want to hear the facts they're interested, and they don't want to hear anything catchy, and they're not interested in building a relationship with you. And then they're only interested in viable ideas, and they don't want to hear anything that hasn't been thought through, so don't offer anything ineffective. Now I'll pass it back to Alexis to wrap this up.
All right. Well, I'll be very quick. Thank you, Keely. So we went over how to determine the objective, we provided clear information, we taught you how to persuade your audience, and we help you facilitate interactive communication, and finally we wrapped it up with measurable outcomes. The point of this conversation and the point of this presentation was to identify your intent. Whenever you're going after somebody with a purpose, it's bound to be effective, it's bound to be clear, and it's bound to be professional. So when you're going with somebody, when you're having a conversation with somebody from a different culture or a different perspective, be sure to be polite, be sure to follow our tips and our recommendations so that way you can communicate in more of an effective way. Thank you. We'll open up for Q&A.